lied on the application when asked if he was an alien illegally or unlawfully living in the U.S.
On this case, and has found additional information, including a recent encounter Labrador Sierra had with police. Lead investigator Brian Duggar joins us tonight in studio with that update.
Just arrived in this country, revealing he's changed his birth date multiple times to fit his purposes, and he even allegedly purchased a gun under false pretenses, a federal crime.
Now, I've asked the district this question. You were told on November 1st, 2023, that he claimed to be a trafficking victim. When did you tell law enforcement that information?
Hi there, welcome to the Reaction Radar. You're not going to believe this segment we got today. A 24-year-old was posing as a teen. It involves guns, fake ID, and a secret pass. You won't believe how deep this goes, but without any further ado, let's jump into this.
A federal complaint has just been filed against Anthony Labrador Sierra, the 24-year-old Venezuelan national who's accused of posing as a 17-year-old Perrysburg High School student, revealing new information about the extent of his alleged deception. Michael Sandlin joins us now in studio with the details. And Michael, this document now confirms his actual age and accuses him of illegal buying a gun.
Yeah, Dan, investigators with Border Patrol just released a timeline of Labrador Sierra's actions since he first arrived in this country, revealing he's changed his birth date multiple times to fit his purposes, and he even allegedly purchased a gun under false pretenses, a federal crime. Who is Anthony Labrador Sierra? Until recently, if you asked his former classmates at Perrysburg High School, he's 17 and a teen seeking asylum in the U.S. But if you check this Ohio ID obtained by federal investigators, or this Venezuelan passport, he's 24 years old, a grown man. It's all part of the elaborate deception federal investigators say they're unraveling now. Even Labrador Sierra's guardians in Perrysburg thought he was a teen, or at least they did, until a woman who federal documents refer to as EC reached out to Labrador Sierra's host mom, claiming he was an adult, the father of her 2-year-old child, and she had a photo ID of Labrador Sierra to prove his real age.
Wow. Didn't see that one coming, but clearly something must have happened there for her to,
Federal documents say after learning this, the host parents then searched his room, finding a prepaid track phone, a fraudulent Michigan ID giving him a third birth date of March 27, 1999, U.S. currency, and a 9mm handgun with 3 loaded magazines. A gun trace found the handgun was purchased in 2022, where federal documents show he lied on the application when asked if he was an alien illegally or unlawfully living in the U.S., answering no, a violation of Title 18 and a federal crime. This discovery by Labrador Sierra's host parents soon led to school leadership at Perrysburg High School being notified, and he was arrested. But the federal complaint doesn't end there. The investigator entered his name into the Customs and Border Protection databases, revealing he's been in the U.S. since September of 2019, arriving in Miami on a tourist visa set to expire in 2020. The passport he used then shows his birth date to be March 27, 2001, consistent with EC's claim he's 24 years old. Labrador Sierra had booked a return flight in November of 2019, but CBP database checks reveal he wasn't on that flight. Instead, he applied for temporary protected status 3 times, first using his real birth date, but when that status expired in 2022, he reapplied with the new birth date of December 2nd, 2007, and enrolled at Perrysburg High School in 2023 with a forged birth certificate with that same birthday. From that moment forward, Labrador Sierra would pretend to be a teen, telling the school he was homeless and had just arrived in the U.S. after being a victim of human trafficking, and started fitting in right under everyone's noses.
Now, that's interesting because I know some schools, that's one of their policies. You can come up and say that you're homeless, and I guess by laws and stuff of that nature, they can't ask you any questions. However, as you can see with this situation, that was not the case. And this is somebody that's trying to commit something that's fraudulent, and I think that law needs to be revisited because again, this is a clear example of somebody taking advantage of the system, if you will.
Prison for illegal weapons possession, up to 10 years for making false statements to get said gun, and up to 5 years for using false documents. Now, he is scheduled to appear in federal court in Toledo on Tuesday. In studio, I'm Michael Sandlin for WTOL 11.
Our 11 Investigates team has also been working on this case and has found additional information, including a recent encounter Labrador Sierra had with police. Lead investigator Brian Duggar joins us tonight in studio with that update.
Yeah, we learned late this morning that Anthony Emmanuel, Labrador Sierra, was detained by Perrysburg Township Police on April 24th after a shoplifting complaint at the Fremont Pike Walmart. Now, Labrador Sierra handed police a juvenile ID, and the case was turned over to the juvenile prosecutor. Now, when it was determined he's actually a 24-year-old man, the case was deleted, and he is now being investigated as an adult. And I am told by the department that shoplifting and other charges are expected to be filed against him in Perrysburg Municipal Court. In addition, I have learned that Perrysburg Police was not told by Perrysburg schools that Labrador Sierra claimed to be a trafficking victim until late last week, despite the district knowing this information since November of 2020.
Wow, so right there, we got some issues. You're committing fraud about your age and stuff like that. You're saying that you're homeless when clearly you're not, to take advantage of the system. You know, and now this, you're claiming that you were a victim of trafficking. Is that truth? Is not truth? Is there any information to, verify that information,
23. And this is significant because it's a policy of the police department to report trafficking claims to the Border Patrol, as they did earlier this week. And the Border Patrol almost immediately determined Labrador Sierra is not only in the country illegally, but he is also not a teenager. Now, I've asked the district this question. You were told on November 1st, 2023, that he claimed to be a trafficking victim. When did you tell law enforcement that information? And I also asked them for the district's written policy on dealing with trafficking claims. Now, I just got a response from them about 10 minutes ago, and they told me that they're not required to give the information about when they turned over or when they reported this information to police, and they said they have no direct policy relating to trafficking claims. However, again, we now know Perrysburg Police were not notified until late last week. Reporting in studio, this is Brian Duggar for 11 Investigate.
Well, this is a very interesting case. Looking back here, you had a Michigan driver's license, currency, it is what it is, but also you had a gun. These are the things that are kind of alarming. This is just not a bizarre case, it's a warning. A grown man slipped through the cracks of the immigration system and education system, and even had a gun. And no one noticed it until it was almost too late. So the question is now, how many more are out there? Find this interesting and this helped you learn something new? Please consider hitting the like, subscribe, so you can keep updated with the information. And as usual, let me know what your thought process are in the comments. I'll be looking forward to seeing that. And until the next time we meet, please stay informed and engaged. Have a good one.